Okay, welcome back. Another set of practice questions today. I've made them more difficult, okay, to try to challenge you. So let's see how well you do. Good test today. Um, if you need our study materials, okay, they're available at our website, right? You can also get them from the links right here, which I'll post down below. If you're enjoying the videos, like and subscribe, okay? I'll keep putting out more videos, more coming this week, next week, so on, okay? Keep studying hard. A lot more people passed this week and this weekend, which I'm excited about. If you haven't passed yet, keep working on it, okay? Keep learning those terms, keep doing practice questions. You're going to get there. All right, so let's get into it. Which of the following is the ideal fading order? All right, so when we talk about fading, we're either talking about fading a prompt or fading a reinforcement schedule. Clearly, from our answer choices, we're talking about reinforcement schedules here, okay? So what do we have listed? We have our continuous schedules, we have our fixed schedules, and we have our variable schedules. So if we're trying to fade our reinforcement schedule, what is the best order to do it? Okay, so start from the beginning. When you're trying to teach a behavior, when do you want to reinforce? Well, if you're teaching a brand new behavior, you want to reinforce every time that behavior happens. And if you're reinforcing every time the behavior happens, what are you doing? You're continuously reinforcing on an FR1 schedule. So you're starting with CRF, which is continuous reinforcement. Okay, now what? Now you've taught it, now you need to strengthen the behavior. Okay, so what do you fade to? Well, you go from an FR1 to say an FR5. Okay, so now the behavior has to happen 5 times before receiving reinforcement. So every fifth time the behavior happens, you provide reinforcement. Okay, so you've gone from continuous to a fixed schedule. Finally, you want to maintain the behavior. Okay, you strengthened it, now you maintain it. So what do? You fade to a variable schedule. VR, which is the strongest reinforcement schedule, the strongest basic reinforcement schedule. Okay, that's how you maintain it. So, question is, what is the ideal fading order? Well, ideally, you'd go from a CRF to an FR to a VR. Okay, CRF to teach, FR to strengthen, VR to maintain. Okay, Diana is very shy. Whenever she speaks to someone, she speaks too softly, and the other person cannot hear her. What must be changed for others to hear what she is saying? Okay, so what are we looking at? We're looking at her voice volume, right? It's too soft. Other people can't hear her. We want to change that voice volume. So what aspect of that voice, okay, do we want to change? Well, do we want to change the topography, how it looks? Well, is there anything wrong with how her voice looks, the enunciation? Okay, no, right? The sound is fine. Okay, it's just too soft. Okay, tone is fine. It's just too soft. So how it looks is okay. Remember, topography is how something looks, right? How it looks is okay, right? We need to increase it, right? Because it's too little right now. So when you want to change the size of something, what are we looking for? Acceleration? No, you might not even know this word. That's fine. Okay, acceleration has to do with fluency. We're not talking about fluency here, right? So acceleration is out. Magnitude. Okay, what is magnitude? Magnitude is going to be the size of something, right? So right now, okay, her voice is too small, it's too little, it's too soft. We want to increase that volume, okay? We want to make it bigger, okay? We want to make it louder. Therefore, we want to increase the magnitude. D, why isn't rate? Well, are we talking about frequency in this particular question? No, there's no frequency. We're talking about the size, right? We're talking about the magnitude of her voice. That's a tricky question, okay? All right, Tim does not like the sound of the blender and will hit his head when the blender is on. His dad turns on the blender, and only when he is not hitting his head will he turn off the blender and give Tim his favorite cookie. This is an example of what? So, what differential reinforcement schedule is this an example of? So, if you've been listening to my videos and studying, there's a really key part of this question that's a dead giveaway. Okay, this looks like a tricky question. There's a lot going on, right? There's a dead giveaway. What is that dead giveaway? Okay, the dead giveaway is the phrase only when he is not hitting his head. Remember, what differential reinforcement schedule focuses on the absence of behavior, focuses on when something is not happening. Is it DRO, DRA, DRA, or DRD? Well, it's DRO. Okay. Remember, DRO, we're looking for the absence of behavior. When behavior is not occurring, okay, we're reinforcing. What's happening in this situation? Dad turns on the blender when the behavior is not occurring, when he's not hitting his head. Dad is reinforcing. Okay. Therefore, the answer is DRO. Remember those little giveaways. Okay. There's always enough information to answer the question. Okay. Don't get bogged down in the details of Tim not liking the sound of the blender's on. Okay. There's a dead giveaway here, and it's when Tim is not hitting his head, he's being reinforced. This is textbook DRO. Okay. Okay. When using momentary time sampling, the observer checks whether the target behavior is occurring. When? Okay. When do you check the behavior during momentary time sampling? Okay. Remember, we have momentary time sampling. We have partial interval, right? And then whole interval. Okay. So when we're using momentary time sampling, when do we check for the target behavior? Do we check at the beginning of the interval, at the end, in the middle, or during the entire? Well, we know it's not D because during the entire interval is what? That's whole interval. Okay. None of our interval schedules are at the beginning and none are in the middle. Okay. You're either checking the whole interval or at the very end. And momentary time sampling occurs when? At the very end, right? Partial and whole, we're looking at that entire interval, right? Partial, if it happens at all. Whole, it has to happen the entire time, but we're observing the entire interval. Momentary, we're only observing the very end of an interval, right? It's on a timer, so every 5 minutes you're looking up. So when you're using momentary time sampling, the observer checks whether the target behavior is occurring at the end of an interval. Which of the following is not an example of direct assessment? Okay, so this is a not question. These really trick people, right? Because they miss the word not and then they get confused. You have to read the question carefully. You have to look and be aware of these questions because they will put these on there. These not questions, okay? They're easy, right? But you have to pay attention to the question. What is the question asking? It's asking what is not an example of direct assessment. Therefore, we need to look for examples of direct assessment. And what is direct assessment? Okay, it's when you're observing the client. You're watching the client. You are directly seeing the client. So let's look at our answer choices. Interview. When we're interviewing somebody, are we observing the client? No, right? We're talking to someone. We're talking to a mom or a dad or a peer or whoever, right? But we're not directly observing the client, okay? So we're pretty sure this is our answer, right? Let's look at the rest. Functional behavior assessment. Yes, this is a direct assessment. You're directly observing the client. You're watching the client do things, okay? That's direct. Functional analysis. This is direct assessment. You're watching the client, okay? You're directly seeing what the client is doing. You're working directly with the client. C is direct assessment. And then D, event recording. Yes, you're watching the client and you're recording certain events. You're directly interacting with the client. Okay, however you need to remember it, this is direct. Okay, whenever you're observing the client, that is direct assessment. When you're not observing the client, that is indirect assessment. And in this case, the following is not an example of direct assessment, would be an interview. Okay, be careful about those not questions. Okay, another one. Which of the following is not an example of an unconditioned reinforcer? Okay, so what do we need to do when you're asked a not question? Okay, look for the examples. So what are examples of unconditioned reinforcers? Well, is verbal praise unconditioned? Are we born, okay, being reinforced by praise? Are all kids reinforced by praise? No, okay. Therefore, you have to condition verbal praise as a reinforcer. You need to pair it with other things, okay, to make it a reinforcer. So we're pretty confident A is not unconditioned, but read the rest of the question or answer choices. They're looking for the best answer choice, right? So always read everything before answering. B, sleep. Is sleep unconditioned? Yes, we are born needing sleep. Given a long enough time, sleep will function as a reinforcer. Air, obviously, yes, we're born needing air. Given long enough, right, air will function as a reinforcer without any prior learning. Remember, unconditioned, no prior learning, okay, no prior pairing. This is innate. And then warmth, yes, okay. that is unconditioned. If you're cold enough, warmth will function as a reinforcer, okay? So our answer here, not an example, okay, is verbal praise. So I threw 2 not questions to remind you, okay, be aware, right, because they will ask questions like this on the exam. They're typically easy, okay? They just want to make sure you're paying attention, right? So make sure you're looking out for that word not. Okay. When Amy wants a cookie, she yells at the top of her lungs. When mom is home, mom rushes to get her a cookie to make her stop. When dad is home, he ignores the screaming. Amy only screams for a cookie when mom is home. What is this called? So what is happening here? Okay. Think about it. Mom's home, Amy screams, okay, cookie. Dad's home, Amy screams, dad ignores. What situation is Amy being reinforced? When mom is home. So Amy has learned to only scream when mom is home. So is this generalization? Well, no, right? She's not generalizing the screaming, okay? Because she's not generalizing it to different people or different places or different things, right? It's only happening in this certain scenario when mom is home. So our generalization answers are immediately out. What's happening, right? Discrimination is happening, okay? Amy is learning to discriminate between what? 2 stimuli, right? Between mom and dad. How does discrimination occur? Well, behavior is reinforced in the presence of one stimulus and not in the other. In this case, behavior is reinforced in the presence of mom, but not in the presence of dad. This has taught Amy to scream when mom is home and not when dad is home, okay? So she is now discriminated, right, between different stimulus, okay? This is a good ABA question, right? Because we're usually talking about red, green, right? Dog, cat, that kind of discrimination. This is a real life scenario when you're an RBT, you might be presented with this, right? And you need to be able to identify this type of discrimination, okay? Why does Amy scream when mom is home and not dad, right? Well, Amy's reinforced in the presence of mom, not in the presence of dad. She's learned to discriminate, okay, when she'll receive reinforcement, okay? And now she only screams in the presence of mom, okay? Make sure you understand this question, okay? It's a really good ABA question. I could see this question being on your exam. What is the most common graph in ABA? I like to throw this question in here because everyone is so nervous about graphing on the exam. I'm here to tell you, you don't need to be nervous, okay? Go back to my questions, part 7, part 8, part 9, part 10, okay? We do a bunch of graphing questions, right? But I'm here to tell you, you don't need to be nervous. The questions on graphing are as easy as this, okay? What is the most common graph? Is it scatter plot, histogram, line graph, or pie chart? It's a line graph, okay? Don't worry about the graphing part, okay? Because an RBT, right, you'll be providing data, right? But you don't need to know the intricacies of graphing, okay? You just need to know the basic line graphs, okay? So don't worry about these. Okay, when is the best time to use an intermittent schedule of reinforcement? So the reason I put this question in here is because earlier we talked about this, right? We talked about intermittent schedules when we answered our fading question, right? We talked about fading that reinforcement from continuous to intermittent, okay? So on the exam, some of the questions will be similar and will help you answer other questions, okay? The way it's set up, right? Some of the questions might relate to other questions, and you need to be on the lookout for those, because if you're stuck on one question, there might be another question on the test that can help you answer that other question, right? In this case, if you know the fading question, right? Let's say you don't know the fading question, but you can answer this one, okay? This is a real good indicator for that fading question, okay? So this question is asking, what is the best time to use intermittent reinforcement? So what is intermittent reinforcement? Well, it's not continuous. Continuous, FR1, every instance of behavior is reinforced. Intermittent, okay, not every instance of behavior. So when did we say we want to use intermittent schedules? Teaching a new skill? No, remember, we want to use continuous reinforcement when teaching a new skill. We want to provide as much reinforcement as often as possible. Gaining momentum? No, when you're gaining momentum, right, you might do a high P, low P, where you want to deliver momentum, okay, quickly, right, to get that behavior momentum going so you can work on skills, okay? So when you're trying to gain momentum, you want to be able to deliver reinforcement on continuous schedules. Maintaining a previously learned skill. Yes, remember what do we say, okay? We teach, we strengthen, we maintain. The best time to use an intermittent schedule is maintaining a previously learned skill, okay? That behavior is now starting to happen more often and every now and then you deliver reinforcement to make sure you're maintaining it, okay? And then D, during errorless learning, no, during errorless learning, what is the goal? You don't want to allow your client to make a mistake, okay? So you are guiding them and prompting them to the right answer and reinforcing every time they get the right answer, okay? That is continuous. So A, B, and D are all good examples of continuous reinforcement. Maintaining, let's say, a VR schedule, okay, is a good example of when to use an intermittent schedule, okay? I told you these are a little more tricky today, so I hope you're doing okay, right? If you're not, don't worry, right? Go brush up on your terminology, okay, and then come back. It's no big deal. Your brother just bought a new drum set and loves to play it late at night. Whenever he starts to play, you put in earplugs to block out the noise. This is an example of, all right, this is similar to that mosquito question, right? I like these type of questions, okay? Because it shows if you're starting to understand these basics. So what's happening in this scenario? Your brother bought a drum set, okay? He starts to play. You put in earplugs, noise goes away. And you continue to put in earplugs in the future. Okay, hope you caught that. What do? Your behavior of putting earplugs increases in the future. What do we know about behavior increasing? Is that reinforcement or is that punishment? It's reinforcement. So we immediately know this is an example of some type of reinforcement, okay? Now, is something being added or something being taken away? So this is tricky, right? Because people say, well, you're adding the earplugs, right? Right. But what is reinforcing? Is adding the earplugs reinforcing or is removing the noise reinforcing? Okay, be very careful. The removal of the noise is what's reinforcing you, right? If you put in earplugs and the noise doesn't go away, okay, then you're not reinforced, okay? So you're gonna have to find something else out. So that the noise being removed is what's reinforcing your behavior. Putting in earplugs is the behavior, right? The consequence is the removal of the noise. Okay, I hope that makes sense, right? Behavior, earplugs, consequence, removing noise. Okay, putting earplugs in increases in the future, therefore negative reinforcement. Okay, again, good ABA question, right? They might ask you something very similar to this. Okay, make sure you understand this question. All right, that's it for today. Okay, keep working hard. Remember, if you want our study materials, okay, they'll be posted below. Right, like, subscribe. I appreciate the support. Okay, reach out with any questions. I'm always here to help. Other than that, keep studying hard. Okay, look out for another video Friday, more next week. Okay, I'll see you soon.